First, set up the magnetic base dial indicator over the direct center of the piston. Now rotate the engine until you find the breakover point. Next, move the gauge to the deck of the block and make sure it's zeroed out. Move the gauge to the outside edge of the piston and take a reading. Now do the same on the other side. Those two numbers will be the same if the piston is squared up to the deck surface. These pistons are out of the hole 10 thousandths. We're continuing on with our 426-inch stroker Gen 3 Hemi, and we're going to dress it out to long block form before it goes down to Mark and Tommy in Detroit Muscle. But for right now, it's time for some head gaskets. Remember, our pistons were 10 thousandths above the deck surface, so we're using a 40 thousandths compressed thickness Cometic MLS to seal this one up, making our calculated compression ratio 10.4 to 1. Our reworked heads can now be positioned on the dowels, and ARP head studs can be screwed into place. The Gen 3 Hemi has a specific head for the driver and passenger side. Make sure you mark them when it's coming apart and get the correct one back in its respective place, or it will just cost you time later on. ARP Ultra Torque is placed on tops of the washers and threads. Finally, the nuts can be ran down and torqued to 105 pound-feet.
Same process for the passenger side, and we marked it as well. Now it's time to see if the factory push rods will work. Now, just because you've got a new aftermarket camshaft doesn't necessarily mean you need new push rods. Now, with that being said, lift and duration both directly affect the push rod length. Now, here's something else. Don't just listen to what somebody else has to say about the length of push rod you need for your engine. There are several other factors involved, like how much the block and the heads have been milled, the thickness of the head gasket, as well as the length of aftermarket valves. They all directly affect the length. We'll roll the engine to work on the #1 cylinder. Now, drop in our Matco extended TDC indicator and rotate the engine so the #1 cylinder is at TDC on the compression stroke. Drop in our adjustable push rods with them as short as possible. Now lay the rocker shaft assemblies in place and tighten them up, making sure the push rod does not contact the rocker. Extend the push rods until they make contact with the rocker. This is called zero lash. Since this is a non-adjustable rocker, we can now remove the assembly. Pull both push rods and we'll take their measurements using a large 12-inch digital caliper. We have 6,550 on the intake, 7,780 on the exhaust. Now we need to add 50 thousandths for lifter preload. Our final is 6,600 on the intake, 7,830 on the exhaust, so those are the two we'll order. Anti-seize can go on the crank snout and on the inside of this ATI balancer we got from Summit Racing. Since the Eagle crank is keyed, a new balancer was in the parts list. It's torqued to 140 pound-feet. A new water pump is a must in engine builds like this. We don't want to take any chances when handing it off to Mark and Tommy. ARP fasteners from the accessory kit hold it on.
To give the engine a different appearance, we cover the intake manifold in VHT's high temperature Wrinkle Plus textured coating. It's good to 350 degrees.